Welcome everybody to the, I think, 14th installment of this ocean optics class. I'll go through the history in a little bit, but just so you know, not all the instructors are here with us yet. I'm here, I'm Emmanuel, I coordinated it since 2004. Colleen Russler is here. She's the longest member in the class. Kurt is here. We've all seen him. Imagine Ken is going to arrive. He has some family issues, so he's not going to be here as often as he wants to be. Megan Stapa has just joined us as part of the faculty. Ivona and Jeremy could not come. NASA did not let them come in the pandemic. We still hope to steal Jeremy on week 4, but we can't promise that. Guillaume is our TA this year. He took the class 2 years ago. And then both Colleen and I have people back in our lab that have done a tremendous amount of work helping us get stuff here. And there's a website for the class here. Just so you know, what I'm comparing, whether we're doing well or not, is relative to having no class at all. It's a complete miracle we have a class. So if you set your expectation not too high, I think you'll have a wonderful time. So, what? Medium high, yeah. And bear with us because all our equipment, Meg's, Colin, and mine, our lab equipment went to sea in April. It's still sitting in England on a dock because of international shipping. So we had to beg and plead and ask from colleagues to send us equipment. So there will be some rough spots, but yeah, just bear with us. It's part of the game, and it's okay. A little bit about Maine. You're on coastal Maine, and we'll do introduction of everybody. Don't worry, you're gonna have introductory games and stuff. We're not forgetting that. A few facts about Maine. It's 1.3 million people. It's been like this, I think, for the last 30 years or so. It's a place that doesn't change much, except for the south part where we very, very long corrugated coastline, as you've seen. When you see water, you never know if it's fresh or salt, because from every direction you can have water here. You're on an island right now. Total area, 35 square kilometer, much inland water. There's a lot of inland water in Maine, and I hope some of you will take the weekends to explore if you feel like it. This year we decided that we're not doing activities on the weekend other than what you guys want to do extra. So if you guys want to go to the lab and do things, wonderful. But we're not, it's not part of the, you don't have to do it. You can take time for yourself, you can rest, you can digest, and you can enjoy the scenery. I went to school on the west coast of the US, and all the East Coasters would talk about season. I have no idea what they talk about, now I do. The seasons are very strong in Maine, and they're often involved with foods, which is really wonderful. So now it's the ones where you get garlic cakes. In May, we have about 3 weeks where you get fiddleheads. So there's all kinds of foods you can find. And now actually you can find amazing mushrooms in much of this forest around here. So those of you who are into mushrooms, I enjoy those. So this is a little bit of history of the class. You're the 14th class. It has a long history. There's started in '85 by Mary Jane Perry and Ken Carter from University of South Florida. Mary Jane Perry was at University of Washington at the time, and then she transferred to UMaine and took the class with her to UMaine. Colin was a student in the second class, TA'd in '89 and joined an instructor in '95. I was a student in '95. When Kurt joined as an instructor, I TA'd in '98 and then I joined instructor in 2001. Ken and Jeremy both joined as instructor in 2011. Ivona and Meg both took the class in 2007. Meg TA'd in 2011. Ivona helped in 2013. Both of them are instructors in the class. So people in the class, they get together in conferences. Now you have a cohort of people that you seek each other. When you write proposals later on, you'll seek each other. People that, at least that's what most of us do. It's we know that we went through some process that maybe has made us think about differently about science and also relationships. So a lot here is about relationships. It's hard to think about it in terms of class, but it's about, you know, how we conduct ourselves as scientists. The NASA group, the OBB NASA group, most of them took the class. They keep recruiting from the class, graduates of the class. So once they get to know you, they know what you're capable of, they know what you went through, they're quite excited to hire you. Yeah, our program manager who's paying for this class, he's also an alumni of the class. The previous program manager who funded this class, he's also an alumni of the class. So they see the value of it also in terms of NASA laboratories. A little bit of history, and this is a lot having to do with instrumentation, but it started with one spectrophotometer and one parser. So you can do a lot just with very simple stuff. As you'll see in the lab this afternoon, optics is very visual, and the effects are very easy to demonstrate to kids with minimum amount of equipment. You don't need fancy stuff. In '87, a computer came into the class, and they ordered a flow cytometer. One computer.
One computer, and you had to sign up to use it for an hour. And so I had the 2 to 3 a.m. slot.
In '89, there was a symposium. People came from all over the country and the world. Morel came, a bunch of other people, and the book came out of it, of that activity. In '95, first year, Hydrolite came in with Kurt, and there was a forward tuning station. '98, hyperspectral overflights. We had airplanes flying over us, and we would steer the boat to take measurements under them. In 2001, I then moved to Maine, the University of Maine. 2007, the Ocean Optics webbook started by Kurt. And I think this year he's going to make it into a PDF. So that's going to be another thing.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Yeah. Mary Jane is one of the classes I told you about.
Okay.
Sorry. Ow! I'm 7 old already.
That's the one thing I spotted.
Yeah.
No mystery. When I give a talk, there's no mystery. Everything comes. Okay. 2003 30th anniversary. Mary Jane, I talked to her yesterday. She's very excited that this continues, the tradition continues. It was her last year, and 2021 first year here. So it's the first time we're in this center. Not only is it the first time, we're the first class in this building. Some of the dorm, you're the first people sleeping in the bed you're in. So it's as new as it gets, and the lab is also as new as it gets. So again, if you have any comments, and I heard already comments about the noise from the doors, all this information is really useful because that will make it easier for future classes. So, think of the upside. You're suffering from the noise, but others will benefit from you suffering. That's awesome. Maybe I'll talk about it probably in the future a little more, but the reason that I keep doing these classes because it changed my career completely. My career, I would not be where I am now in science was it not for the class I took when I was a graduate. So, I truly believe in it. I mean, I completely switched field between what I was doing as a graduate student to my postdoc because of the class, and never looked back. So, emotionally, it's a class that's important for many of us. And now it has to become.
It likewise changed my life too. I was a physical oceanographer working with Dudley Chelton at Oregon State University, who's works on remote sensing. But at the time, he set me up here to figure out what ocean color remote sensing looked like. What were we actually sensing? Was it really chlorophyll? And what's chlorophyll anyway? He didn't really know. So he sent me up to the class, and it changed my life because suddenly we realized that what we resolve with the ocean color is so many things. He thought it was like all the things that are not chlorophyll, and that's a problem. And I saw it as all the things that aren't chlorophyll, and that's an opportunity. And so I came back from the class and I said, I gotta go. So I joined Mary Jane as a graduate student at the University of Washington, and that's why I've been part of this class ever since. And like an annual, it changed my career trajectory, it changed my life, and changed all of the people I work with, and it was a fantastic experience. So I'm at Bowdoin College, and this is our brand new Schiller Coastal Studies Center. I wanted to just tell you a little bit about it. So it's 118 acres, so you should be able to do some exploring. As like the rest of Maine, it's just a complete inundation of the shoreline. It's beautiful. It was a gift. This property was a gift. And then in 1995, they built a terrestrial lab. And if you haven't explored the terrestrial lab, it's over that way. It's completely off the grid. Beautiful. It's almost like an art studio. You should just go over and look at it. It was also a gift from Gorman, the chairman of Elohim. In 2006, they decided to turn it from more than a flowing seawater marine biology lab by adding a research pier and a floating dock. And that has been down to the, how many people have been down to the dock? Have you all been down to the dock? If you've not been down to the dock, head down at whenever we get break. It's really beautiful. We've got a couple boats. And then a couple of years ago, the money came from the Schiller family to build this, to make this be a place where students can come and learn and be really embedded into the environment. So that's really exciting. So here we are. This is the peninsula. And when it says Marine Lab, it means the Flowing Seawater Lab, which is not that building, but the white one below it. The Sailing Center, which is over here, that was just put in. And you notice they don't have any of the other buildings here yet on the map, right? So some of these trails, these are all different trails that you can walk. Some of these trails are not, we're like sitting right on top of the trail, but you can still sort of find the ways to get there. So you can find this map online, or I can print it out, or you can just wander around until you find the trails. One thing I will say, we're in a period of time where ticks are around. So just, check yourself for ticks. Ticks don't ever carry anything good. If you don't shave, then you'll feel them on your legs because they move the hairs. If you feel something like moving the hairs on your legs or arms, just check it out and pull it off. They're kind of itchy before they bite you. But they start to die off as soon as it gets hot, but right now it's just been 2 people. So just be careful if you're walking through the grass, just check yourself for ticks. Let's see. Oh yeah, so here we are with all the buildings. So hopefully you guys have oriented yourself to it. Okay. So that's the Flowing Seawater Lab. That's going to be the dry lab where we'll hold all of our labs. That's the building right there. You guys know very well the dorms. There's an apartment here which has a research scientist from Holy Cross who's up here working for the summer with his students. And that's the sailing building. So if you haven't been down to the dock, you just follow this road all the way down through the trees, and the dock will be sticking out about here. All right. So here is a chart. I've made a copy for you. I will post this. If you want to know what the depths of the water are anywhere and the orientation of the land masses, and if you go kayaking, where you're headed, are you going upstream or downstream? So I'll post this over there. I'll also put the PDF on the link so you guys can download it yourself. But that's where we met you in Brunswick, right? That's where we are now. And I'll just tell you that there's a little oceanographic buoy down here in the deepest hole of Harpswell Sound. It's about 30 meters of water. It's a land-ocean biogeochemical buoy that I've had deployed since 2014. I had a larger scale one there since about 2006. So it's constantly measuring incident solar radiation. It measures fluorescence of chlorophyll, fluorescence of colored dissolved organic matter, backscattering, has an ADCP on it, so we get current profile. So lots of data, and so it will tell us a lot about what's going on in the sound. So while we're making measurements up here on the dock, we have a complete data set that's available in real time, which is nice with some history behind it. I bring this up because this is, I just pulled off the 5-meter current measurement. And these are in millimeters per second, and it's about 2 meters per second current along that center axis of the sound. So unless you're super strong kayaker, be aware of the tides and be aware of being in that center channel because it rips in there. It's really hard to. So kayaking around the edge is really nice. Swimming is really nice. But just be aware of where you are in the face of the tide. And I have tide charts for you that I will also put up. Okay. So what I wanted to call attention to is that you can link to the data to get the data in real time off of here. If you want to look at what the currents are right now, it updates every hour. And I will post these, you have to write them down. And also if you want to get your own tide charts for South Park Swell at usharbors.com. And I pulled off the first couple of days of the class, just to let you know that on the 25th, which is going to be a full moon, which means the highest tide range. The tide range between high and low is going to be about 12 feet, which means it will have maximal current, and it'll be 3 meters per second at max flood and max ebb, but also incredibly beautiful. So, let's see. Oh,
There's a reason.
that's back to you.
So I don't know how many of you have looked at the Sentinel playground. Did you hear about it? So I just discovered it this year. It's a wonderful discovery. So let me take you there. So this is ESA, not NASA. ESA came up with this tool to make ocean color data more, and other data more useful for people. So I'll go just as if I were you. So I'll do Sentinel, and then I'll do playground. Let's see what's come. I go to Sentinel playground, Sentinel hub, and I get this. Then say open Sentinel playground, open Sentinel playground, and then go to a place, and I'm going to put Orr's Island, Maine. Here we are. So now, now go plus, 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 so I can go in there. So you can see we're here. You can choose the satellite you want. So here you can see, this is Sentinel-2 level 2, but you can have Landsat 8 if you want, or MODIS. And here, where you go to this, you can get the date of the last pass. And some of them are just clouds, so you don't get anything, like this. But some of them you get something. So you can go. I think the 13 was good. This is a little better. But anyways, you get all the Sentinel-2, you get the Landsat passage, you get MODIS. Now, the nice thing with these Sentinel ones is that you can keep going in, to the point in which you see both waves as they go through. You get 10-meter resolution. On the left-hand side, you can choose what you want to see. Do I want to see swirl bands? So we have something about the atmosphere. Do I want to see vegetation and NDWI, or do I want to see just, there's one on bathymetry. There's one there with bathymetry. I don't see it now. But anyway, and you can also you can choose your own combination of things. Here, there's one of them where you can choose your own combination of wavelength to go more in this way. So the other thing you can use it is just to collect images from remote sensing that then you can process, etc. down the road. It's a beautiful just exploration tool. I like it a lot. We use it a lot. This is natural colors. So, and you can of course
Are we waving in the picture?
What?
Are we waving?
But it's really amazing how you see both ways. So now I go back to the video. So this is what I want to show you. This.
So here's our approximate schedule I know we started early today. I wasn't certain how it was going to take people getting ready. So we may decide we want to start earlier and have a longer break, or really people would rather start at 8:30. But breakfast will always be 7:30 to 8. And lunch will always be 12 to 1, and dinner will always be 5:30 to 6:30. So one of the things that we ask is that if you know that you are not going to be here for a meal, like say you decided you're going to go camping on the weekend, on Thursdays, I'll just have a reminder of how many people are going to be around for the weekend, just so that we can let the cooking staff know if, you know, a third of the class is gone. It makes a big difference in how much food they make. So just kind of let us know what your plans are. We can let them know how to prepare meals, because if everyone's going to be gone on Sunday, let's let Chris sleep in, right? So, and so mornings will be basically 2 lectures with a break, and then lunch, and then labs can start somewhere between 1 and 1:30, depending upon which lab it is, and we'll have a break halfway in between. We've organized the labs, it's going to be in 2 halves. And then dinner, and then whatever fun and games happen after dinner. On Mondays, we'll have Bowden is sending down a COVID testing group, and today they'll be here, I think around 11:30, so we may have to split up. We may have to figure out what we do on Mondays with the lecture, morning lecture. Today, you're going to get a rapid antigen test and a PCR test. And one of the reasons I needed all of your information is that you will directly get your results in a confidential way from the PCR test that's being run by the Broad Institute in Boston. The antigen test they're going to run right here, so we'll have results in 15 minutes. And there's a whole protocol that we have in case someone tests positive and has symptoms. And so don't worry, Bowden is on it. We had the lowest rate of COVID infection and in terms of contact tracing for the whole year of COVID, and we had students on campus. So they're on it, they're prepared, you'll be taken care of, and so everything will be good. But every Monday, they're going to come and test all of us. And then on Tuesday, the associate director for the Marine Lab, Steve Allen, is going to come and welcome us. He's sorry he can't be here today, but he'll kind of go through some of the things you want to think about when we're here, like, can we have a fire in the fire pit? Well, it's been really rainy, so probably, yeah, we could. But if it starts to get dry, he'll say, ooh, we can't really do that because of a fire danger. And he'll talk about, going swimming off the dock and what it's all kind of at your own risk, but he'll go over that, and he's a wonderful guy. He's one of those people who, if you say, would it be possible for us to do this? And he'll say, I don't know, but we'll make it happen. He is just a can-do guy. And so it's great having a person like that running a Marine Lab, because it just needs that, it makes it a fun place to work. All right, so back to manual.
So, one of the reasons this class was so different for me is I took a class just before I took the optics class somewhere else for 10 weeks. And it was hell. It was hell because the students competed against each other. The faculty had favorites, and they would invite them on Friday night to their houses. All that kind of really, middle school behavior that we don't need here. So the idea here is you're not competing with each other. You learn much more by helping each other, both by teaching and by learning. It's your opportunity to get a community. It's your opportunity to ask any question you want, whether you feel they're silly or not, in a safe environment. Nobody's judging you. So just take a deep breath, relax, have as much fun as you can, and learn as much as you can. Be really sad if you come back home and say, oh, I should have spent more time, calibrating this sensor afterwards. So this is your time to learn. So use it as, this is what I say, the weekend you do whatever you want, but if you want to dive deeper into something, just tell us and we'll help you dive deeper into it. So it's up to you. First week, we'll be here in the mornings and in the afternoon in the lab, or in the dock working with the instruments. Third week, we'll have a boat that will come and in 2 groups, and some will stay here and work with modeling, and some will go out on the boat, and then they'll switch to take measurements and learn how to deal with those signals. And some of the peculiarities that happen when you're not in a dock anymore, you're on a moving boat. One concept that we keep hammering into your head throughout the class is the concept of closure. Closure in, unlike in physical oceanography, when it has to do with turbulence and how you parameterize the model, in optics, it means you get to how you get to the same answer in an independent way. So until you don't do closure, you really don't know really what your uncertainties is. And a recent example of a paper that just got published last week is one by a class alumni by Kelsey Bisson, where she decided to look at ocean color satellite, but not by comparing them to each other, but comparing them to a ground truth in ways that were not done before. And suddenly there's a bias, a seasonal bias in all of our ocean color satellites. It was not detected before, of tens of percent. So, you know, when you take the same technology and compare it to each other, you can make them agree because they're the same technology. But the moment you start using other technologies, LiDARs, BGC Argo floats, suddenly you start seeing the backscattering I get from MODIS does not agree, not only in the value, but even in the seasonality with the BGC Argo float. So this is what we call closure. And closure can be between the model and data, between data from two different sources that are measuring the same thing in different ways. So this is something we want to drill into your head. That until you don't do this exercise, you don't really know the uncertainties of anything you do. So always think about how can I corroborate whatever I got in another way. We talked about this, and we hope if the data will be of sufficient quality and so we go to CBAS, we don't have to. This we only do if we think the data is good enough. So we went through closure, we saw that it worked. We are getting some instruments nobody has ever gotten before their hands on. In this class, we're getting a Hyper BD. So it's a backscattering instrument that measures every 10 nanometer backscattering, and also a new transmissometer from Sequoia. Why am I saying it? Because one of the exercises you're going to do in the class is closure with hydrolite. And this is the first time you can have a full spectrum of backscattering as well as a full spectrum of absorption to put into hydrolite and see if it matches the radiometry you're going to be measuring at the same time. So we have a real opportunity here to get better closure than has been done before. So you're part of a like-minded community here. I'm going to repeat myself a bit. Sharing nothing other will benefit you in the long term. And we're not competing with each other. We'll get back to it as part of the class. So this is the preaching part of the class. And I think it's really important because scientific community is made by human beings, we're not machines. And so how we learn to engage with each other makes a big difference on how we feel going to work, going to conferences, submitting papers. If we knew that our colleagues treat us the same way we treat them. Our field benefits a lot from us doing good work. And that's what helps us get new mission into space. If they see that our science is useful, we can get a new satellite up there. Nowadays, we're pushing hard to get an ocean LiDAR. There is no ocean LiDAR yet in operation. There is PACE coming up, and PACE will have UV bands we haven't had yet. It's going to have polarimeter that we did not use yet in the ocean widely to do science with. So it's a very exciting time to be a graduate student or postdoc. On the other hand, we have to be extremely honest about what we can and cannot do with these measurements, because otherwise people expect us to give them things that currently we can't. So in science, it's all about facts. There's what we would love to, but that's not part of the fact. But I want to remind you here, Colin talked about the schedule, the syllabus is going to get updated regularly, Guillaume adds up, and videos are going to go online, PowerPoints, everything going to go online, just like you saw for the previous year's classes. In every morning, we'll start the day by you guys reporting about things that have to do with the lab before. So when you finish the lab there at 5:30, whenever it is, you will have homework. And it's a lot of stuff. I mean, we'll ask you to report about, after you analyze the data, how this look, how that look, how this, and no one of you can do it on your own. So you'll self-organize into groups, and each of you will chew a little piece and then present the next morning to us. Okay? And then if there's still issues, we might revisit this on and on. The point here is not to run forward fast, but to make sure that you got the little pieces in the way, if you understand what it is that. Yes.
And that's part of the weekend part too. Like you get to the weekend and you're like, I totally missed what happened last week. Like I think I just didn't capture everything that I should have. You can take the weekend to revisit, and maybe if we find when you do this self-reporting every week, they like, oh, looks like you didn't quite do the temperature correction right. You can go back and do the analysis again, and then say, hey, look, I think I got it this time, right? So don't let that opportunity pass. You feel like you have a month here, but it goes quickly because there's a lot to do. But keep yourself in check so that you know that you're able to really answer your own questions and feel that you've been able to take everything from start to finish. Because that's a really important aspect. And you have all of us here. It's the only time you'll have all of us here in one spot. So just take advantage of that. And so if you feel you want to do a little bit on off hours to get caught up, I think it's really important to know that there's time.
The saddest thing would be for you to in 6 months you have to do something yourself with your lab. Oh shit! Only I worked more on that aspect or got deeper to that. So yeah, this is your time, and we're not forcing you to do anything. We're not going to force you to listen. We're not going to force you. So we treat you as adult, and you do with it whatever you want. T-shirts. So this is the t-shirts from last guy. Colin has many more.
So I don't have 1985, but I have 1987 because I was the one in charge of making them. It was at Friday Harbor Labs. It was the first time we had spectral instruments. So we had a little satellite and some phytoplankton. And then I took all the t-shirts back to Seattle and I did all of these by hand in an artist studio with like a spray gun. So everybody's shirt was different. Happy to say it's still in good shape.
Still feature.
Still fits barely, but fits. A couple kids. This was another option. Again, we were in the Northwest. Dan Kotiga, who's now director of Massachusetts Water Resource Authority, took the class, and this was his design. He had multiples. I'll just show you the ones from the manual. This was, oh gosh, Kurt, it's in Latin.
I think it's light in every language. It's light
in every language. Okay. Yes. That every language of the students that were in the class.
I know that's you. No, that's the Latin.
This is your class. That their class was green. They had two. And then there's one with like everybody on the ship and all the little comments from every student coming off of the. So I'll leave my t-shirts up here if you want to take a look at them and get ideas. If you want to.
There's only one class that haven't done a shirt, and I don't want you to be the second one. So there's several possibilities. This one is cheap because it advertises the school where I am. You don't have to go that way. You can go whichever way you want. This is easy. I can get those, and then you guys come up with a design and you can add it on. But maybe we can do the same with both this year. But otherwise, you can go wild whichever way you want. It might cost a little more, but it will be more of who you are than something that.
When you go to conferences and they have that special ocean optics, like get together, everyone can wear their class shirts.
So yeah. Week 3, you're going to do CDAS. So we'll ask you to download it. You will not every PCs do not support, you cannot download CDAS to it. So it's okay to share, work 2 on a computer. It's not that hard to do for Macs, but make sure you do it so that you're ready then and you don't have to spend time on week 3 downloading it. So this is on your own side. There's plenty. This is actually a fun assignment because you will run into problems, but there's tons of YouTube movies on how to solve those problems. And you feel really good about yourself that you figured it out. without. Guillaume knows a lot about it, so Guillaume can help as well. He's fully, I cannot. I mean, I downloaded it, but I don't know.
And Jeremy might be here to help a little bit.
Hopefully.
Run a computer in the
So
back.
this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this morning, and we're gonna do this afternoon. So what's gonna happen is we're all gonna pair, and also pairing with instructors, and you'll each introduce the other person, not yourself, the other person. So you're gonna go. We're gonna split into twos, and then you're gonna ask these from the other person. I'm gonna project it on the wall, and you can write it. And then that person is going to introduce, you're going to stand here in twos, and each one of you is going to introduce the other. And we can turn the camera off for that part. It doesn't have to share the direct as well. But anyways, so also tell us something about you that nobody knows because and doesn't suspect, because that how you suddenly discover that you're not the only one that is excited about this. It's very esoteric, whatever it is that you're excited about. So it's kind of more personal, usually. So I have two more slides that are just more general about the approach that we go through here. So it's some themes that you're going to see throughout the class. One of which is forward versus inverse. Forward is when I start with an ecosystem, carbon, climate system, fisheries has. And let's assume that it's something that I also know how to measure. And let's even further assume, which is not always the case, or mostly not the case, that we know the optical properties associated with that. So I have a phytoplankton and I know what its absorption is and backscattering, and it never changes, as it does in the real world. If I know that, I can totally predict the color of the water and what I see from a satellite for a given day with a given atmosphere. So this is well defined. There's, as long as all the assumption about the knowledge of each one of those are correct, I can do it. But the inverse problem is much harder because there might be different combination of these that would give you the same color in the bands that I have. Maybe if I had more bands, I could discern, but I'm not sure. So this is considered a well-posed problem in this direction, and an ill-posed problem in the opposite direction because of the multiple solutions. There's not necessarily one solution. So we go through a whole variety of ways to reduce the solution space to find the solution it has to. For example, it might be that, oh, in the waters I'm in, I know that Prochlorococcus cannot, they're not cold water phytoplankton. So if I have a solution to Prochlorococcus, that's a wrong solution. That's how information came from optics. This information comes from ecology. But this is how you limit the inverse problem to realistic solution. So just an example. So this is, again, a theme that you see throughout the class. The forward, which is how, when I know what's in the water concentration, their optical properties, I know exactly what I'm going to get in terms of color. I can put it into hydroline. And the inverse, which is really the hard, but it's the one we all are trying to do, which is I took water and I'm running through an instrument, or I look through it from space, and I'm trying to say what's in the water. So it's a real tough one. And then there's a little bit about the methodology on how we go about doing it. So what most of us are excited about is understanding marine biogeochemical cycles, ecosystems, both locally in our water and on the planet. And for this, we need good measurements. And what I mean by good is at least that we know the uncertainties. We can put error bars on them. We know what they are. And they might be good for something and not good for others, depending on the tolerance for it. So when this is what we want, when we sample in the ocean, we have to think about what's the appropriate spatial and temporal scale. So some people, you sometimes think that if I go and do a measurement now in Harpswell Sound, I can characterize that environment. Well, in 2 hours, it might be completely different. Not only in a different season or a different year, in 2 hours, it might be, simply because the tidal flow. So you always have to think about the background environment. In a lake nearby, it might be good. Might be good for a week. But here, just in front of the lab, it's not even good for 2 hours, maybe because of the dynamics of the tides. To do CalVal, which is what we need to do to convince ourselves that satellites are giving us good products and then making good measurements, we need to make good measurements in the water because 90% of the signal on top of the atmosphere, at the top of the atmosphere is just the atmosphere, and so we have to remove it well. And then we're looking for this small signal, which is what we care about. So this requires a lot of work. So sometimes it's better to get a few good points than many bad points, but it depends. If you have a very large dynamic range, then you might tolerate higher uncertainties. So a lot depends on where you work, and so you keep your head open. Just don't just listen to me or to calling to anybody. Just think for yourself about your environment, what is required. And then finally, disclosure is until we compare to something else, we really don't. So always think about, am I in the same bubble? I'm all the time doing measurement with the same sensors, and so I don't really know. So yes, I calibrate them in my own way, I compare them, but I'm not really comparing to something completely independent. So how can I compare to something completely independent? But that's just really, it's a little bit of philosophy. This is what we're going to be doing. So
Over lunch.
over lunch,
That's what it says.
over lunch and after. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
other lunches.
So we're going to take a break now. There's coffee, there's tea, there's water, there's restrooms, there's whatever you need. And how?
And then we'll hear from Kurt. Kurt has lecture one, so introduction of the class.
Yeah, that's cool. 15 minutes.
Yeah. And then I have sort of an intro to, well, just right